Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus back here with you today on Monday, July 10th. And we have a pretty exciting update in the precious metals markets. And it's a update to what we talked about last week with the Andrew Maguire interview situation, whatever you'd like to call it. Basically, Andrew Maguire, who is a metals trader in London, had gone on to King World News about a month ago and said he was expecting a pretty significant event in the gold and silver markets around the July 5th time frame. And just for those who aren't familiar with Andrew Maguire, quick background: he's become pretty well known within this silver and gold community, especially the people who've been following the ongoing manipulation of the markets, which again, we've now seen some of the banks already confess to. Referencing Deutsche Bank, you can see some of the trader transcripts that came out of that one last year. Anyway, Andrew's been pretty well known because back in 2010, he actually contacted the CFTC and basically said, I trade metals here in London. It's gotten pretty out of control. It's commonly known that they're manipulated. Some of these guys are here bragging about it. I'll even walk you through manipulation before it's going to happen, which he did. And as you'll see, linked below is you can see actually the correspondence between him and the regulators saying this is what's going to happen before it happens. This is how they're going to take advantage of it. So anyway, he's had an interesting perspective, and in my opinion, certainly has access to perhaps some information that is hard to find elsewhere. It's a tricky situation because you have a manipulated market. So again, there appears to be a couple banks that are really at the heart of selling a lot of paper silver and gold, which can drive the price lower. The reports, the commitment of trader reports show these guys buying it back lower each time. And with part of it being some pretty manipulative, clearly against the rules behavior, which that trader David Liu from Deutsche Bank confessed to. They called it spoofing, but basically putting in a big order that triggers the algorithms, you drive the price down, you buy lower. And so we've had more and more evidence of this. This is what Andrew told the CFTC a couple of years ago, and I've always found his information to be pretty in line with what I would think. And certainly when he's one of the voices that isn't always saying, well, we're going to have new gold or silver highs tomorrow, but hearing someone with his perspective and information making the claim that something big was coming, I've certainly been curious to see what happens. And with that said, let's get on to what he actually said here, which basically was that there's a 250-ton order of gold coming that basically won't be able to be delivered. And this is going to happen ahead of the Indian buying season in September. He mentioned how he had said earlier this year a time frame of 3 to 6 months, which the back end of which would have implied August. And he sure sounded pretty confident that that's still coming, which was encouraging to hear. Said 100% certain it's coming, and also that we're going to see a significant price reset, which, hey, in the end, what does all this mean? Is it, now I know, and I think there's value in being skeptical. Hey, could this order come? Maybe someone's giving him information to throw people off, or even whether the order comes or not. I think that the fact that someone of Andrew's background has gone out and stated it so confidently, I think there's certainly something to what he's saying. Do conditions change or something's canceled? We don't know. But again, it's just one further sign of, in the end, being a game of eventually people come in and say, I want my physical metal, which when you think about it, it's not really that complex. If you spend the time and read about this for a while and really are looking for the truth, which I didn't wake up just at age 4 in my crib studying gold and silver manipulation. think ironically it has been going on that long the more I learn and research this whole saga. But I found it was one of those things that if you're trying to understand the price of an asset and why it would move in some rather counterintuitive ways at times, you eventually get to this conclusion. And so, how does it eventually get resolved if there are multiple paper claims to the same asset? Basically, in this case, banks selling a lot of paper, silver, gold that they don't have. Then eventually you have the run on the bank, which would trigger what I continue to expect to happen of significantly higher prices as it rises while people are trying to cover their short position. So basically, Andrew thinks that we're close to that break point. And certainly if there's an order of that size that comes through that can be delivered, that would be exactly what you would expect. I wouldn't be as audacious enough to comment on whether that's coming this week, next month, or next year. I'll defer to Andrew on that, and I'm certainly watching that because there's a lot of other signs that we're close. I don't know that I've seen perhaps the smoking gun where you go all in yet. But hey, you continue to see these signs. Factor in what Andrew said, and perhaps what I like so much about this situation, why I felt comfortable about it for a while, is that if you're putting aside gold or silver, that you can say this is what I'd want to pass on to my children, or what I'd want to retire on, or just something that you're not doing on margin, you're not leveraging, you're not going to be forced out. I wish I could tell you whether the manipulation is about to end. I think there's a chance that it is. There's also a chance that it could go on longer. In fact, another interesting thing Andrew mentioned was that he believes that the folks that are doing some of the behavior we talked about before are going to attempt to do it again, but basically this time it will blow up in their face. I am certainly rooting for that. I don't know if we're there yet, but what I like about the concept of just thinking from a long-term perspective where you don't have to worry about, hey, maybe it goes down to $15 or $14. I don't think that will happen, but if you mitigate the risk of being forced out of your trade, then it really doesn't matter if you still believe at some point we're going to reach that break point, whether today, tomorrow, next month, 5 years from now. Again, when I look at the skew of it, I mean, we're basically at how much it costs to get silver out of the ground. So there's some degree to which how much lower can it go versus, let's say Andrew's correct, and you have this short squeeze which has all sorts of implications of the dollar, and do we finally see this next bubble in stocks, bond, and real estate collapse, and does that impact the currencies where people finally say enough? We'd rather go to a cryptocurrency. We'd rather go to gold and silver because they see it's all based on borrowing and printing. So in that situation, the benefit is to me worthwhile. That again, you leave your metal there, it's there, and you just keep following and see what happens. And you can enjoy what's happening rather than being worried about it. Certainly, if you've been investing in gold and silver over these past couple of years, it hasn't been an easy time. Yet in the end, similar with the real estate market, the actual things aren't always that difficult to see, but it's really having the right mindset to being prepared to handle these things, how we react if it's keeping you up stressed and you can't sleep at night, then at some point, you just want to make sure all these things are balanced. So with that said, we're going to wrap up here for today. We'll have part 2 tomorrow, which just a few other observations on some of the things Andrew commented on, which just are really fascinating. If you're into following what's happening below the surface and seeing these things before they unfold, in either case, I think we're in exciting times. But hopefully that was helpful, and at least you get some sort of update. I really appreciate that Andrew he's gone out and made a pretty bold claim. Although he comes back and updates and supports it, which I think is all you can ask. And anyway, exciting times in the precious metals markets. We'll see what happens. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks.